A Barna study shows that more than 60% of adults say they feel stuck between who they were and who they are becoming. Pause. When people go through transition, uncertainty, loss of identity, what tends to happen is they over explain themselves. They talk more, they justify more, and they replay history more. I want you to hear this clearly from my mouth to your ears. You are human. And we do the exact same thing with God. In Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you. Now, let me say this in a way that feels real. God knew you before you ever filled out an application, before you learned how to introduce yourself in rooms where you were trying to be taken seriously. So, before you figured out how to package your strengths so people would listen to you, trust me, God knew you before the title gave you that confidence. And before your salary made you feel secure, before the applause in the room made you feel visible, right? So some of us didn't really know who we were until those things showed up, but God already did. And that's where the tension begins. Because when those things shift or end or get taken away, we panic. We panic. So why do we keep showing God receipts? Why do we need to show God, this is the person that I used to be? This was my title. From a human perspective, receipts in our minds, I'm assuming equals some type of proof. Think about it. You're in one of those big department stores we all know, and you paid and you got everything in your buggy. You get to the person at the door, and you're walking towards the door, your keys already in your hand, you got your mind on what's next, and somebody stops you. Receipt, please. Now, in that moment, your heart is doing something like, okay, I know I paid for this. Don't look guilty. Just reach in your bag and get your receipt. So you pause, you start digging in your bag, you're checking your purse, you're checking your wallet, scrolling through your email, like, I know I bought this. And when you find it, you hold it up. Here's my proof. That's how we treat God in transition seasons. We start pulling out our spiritual receipts. God, see what I did? See what I gave up? See how hard I worked? See what I walked away from? And we're not trying to impress him. We're trying to explain ourselves. Because when things look quiet, we want assurance that our sacrifice counted. God isn't stopping you at the door, and he's not checking your bag or your wallet. He's not squinting at your receipt like he's unsure. He already knows what you paid. He already knows what you surrendered, and he already knows the cost. And once you stop leading with receipts, that is when peace starts to settle in. Reason one, first reason God doesn't consult your past is God defines you by your calling, not your credentials. And we live in a performance world, let's face it. So when a season ends, we feel like our value dropped. But God does not operate on resumes. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27, God chose things the world considers foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise. If God always used your strongest skill, trust me, you would never stretch. And if he always leaned on your experience, you would never grow either. So here's a question for you. Where are you still trying to prove something God already approved? The second reason is your past success would interfere with your obedience. If God took the step to explain everything he was doing, you know what we would do? We would negotiate. Trust me, we would negotiate. We're reminded in Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, the Lord had said to Abram, leave and go to the land and I will show you. Not the land I already explained, the land I will show you. There are some instructions that require movement before clarity. And that's hard for planners. That's hard for achievers too. And that's hard for people that are used to control. Ask yourself this: where am I waiting on details instead of trusting God's direction? And if this message is speaking to you, like this video, share it with someone in transition. Someone needs this reminder today. Reason number 3. The third reason is waiting seasons are not your punishment. God doesn't work like that. He's setting you up for the preparation. This is your holding pattern season. This is your waiting season. Think of it like you're in the airport, you're in the air, and you're in that holding pattern where you're circling around in the air, not quite ready to land. We're reminded in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. Waiting builds endurance, waiting builds discernment, and waiting strips us of our ego. Reason number 4. God assigns by sovereignty, not your timeline, not by speed. We rush God because silence makes us uncomfortable. Let's face it, when God's not talking yet, we get antsy. But we're reminded in Ecclesiastes chapter 3:11, God has made everything beautiful for its own time. God does not respond to pressure. He responds to purpose. So, question, what are you rushing to do because waiting feels uncomfortable? Reason number 5. Extraordinary assignments usually start very small. We're reminded also in the Bible in Zechariah chapter 4, verse 10, do not despise these small beginnings. Some of you were not demoted. I'm going to say that again. Some of you were not demoted. You were repositioned. God stepped you back so he could send you forward in a different kind of way. Let's face it, if he reused everything that we used to be, everything we used to do, you'd rely on your experience. And if he forms you and you're becoming, that makes you rely on him. And that is the ingredient of faith. So remember, God assigns our future without consulting our past identity, because he is not limited by what you used to be or what you used to have. He's focused on what he's building right now. So that same Barna research that I told you about, it also shows people who trust God during major transitions report greater peace and clearer purpose than those who rush outcomes. Peace comes from trust. And remember, purpose comes from surrender. So if you're in a transition season, please don't rush. Sit with God. This is an opportunity to really connect with him. Let him lead. And if this message blessed you, subscribe to Life in Christ, Life with God. Like, share, and leave a comment. I want to hear all about what season you're in right now and how you're walking with God. And we will continue to walk this journey together.